Shields up, Iron Breakers. How's everybody doing? Rurikhan here, coming at you with another episode of Kast. This one going to be a live one. I have a couple of things that I want to talk about. I guess even though it says rant on the title, this is not as much a rant as much as it is kind of like almost a collection of stories that I wanted to bring up. These are some stories that maybe some of you guys have heard them because I have mentioned them throughout a couple of gameplay sessions while I'm in the middle of a game talking with you guys about the game. Sometimes some of these topics will come up because some of you guys will ask about them in chat. And I will tell you guys my opinions on some specific things. And this today's video is going to be somewhat about those things because it's just been something that's been boiling up inside of me, and sometimes it just kind of comes out in the middle of a video, and I figured I should just do a video where I talk about a lot of these subjects, and it does involve modern day gaming, so to speak, and things that are being done in order to monetize modern day gaming, as well as the excuses that are being brought forward in regards to this kind of stuff. So I guess one of the very first things that I would want to mention is that nowadays we're living in a PvP environment, so to speak. And you guys like PvP? Talking about player versus player deathmatch. This is what the fuck's going on? PvP? You want to talk about PvP? Let's talk about PvP. And it's like, no, I'm not saying player versus player. I'm talking player versus publisher. And this is where a bunch of players just like complain about things that video game publishers are doing, and it kind of becomes this very negative and very aggressive even back and forth, where it gets to a point where, let's face it, no one from a respectable publisher is actually, and by I say respectable because nowadays that term is like, yeah. But ultimately what's going to happen is the way that the dialogue is going, and a lot of the videos that I've been watching online from some people that are being very critical of certain publishers, the way things are going, what is happening is we're essentially, all of us, I'm not just saying that it's our fault on the player side or it's just the publisher's fault. It's like all of us, we're creating this environment where essentially it's a war. At this point, it's a war. And what's going to happen is on our side, the player side, we're like, we want everything and we want you to get nothing, to the publishers. And the publishers are the other way around. They're like, we want to give you as least as possible and we want to take everything. And that's kind of the narrative that I feel that is happening nowadays, which is, in a lot of ways, it's kind of weird to have things like that, because usually you would expect like, oh, these people, they make cool games and we love them. And there are some publishers that are like that. There are a lot of them that are actually doing a good job. I mean, 2017, amazingly enough, is an interesting year to have a discussion like this, because 2017 has been one of the best years that I can remember since pretty much ever in video games. And at the same time, it has been one of the worst years that I can remember since ever in video games, which is quite the weird thing to think about. It's been a great game because a great game. It's been a great year because a lot of really good games have come out, and I do mean some fucking fantastic games. Like, I'm sure that at this point in October, people maybe don't even realize, but this is the year that we got Neo. This is the year that we got Nier Automata. This is the year that we got Horizon Zero Dawn. And I could keep going and going. This is the year we got Legend of Zelda, The Breath of the Wild. I could keep going on and on. Like, I'm going to have a tough time deciding which game is going to be my game of the year this year. All I'm saying is that a lot of really good games came out this year. And I do mean a lot of them. We also had one of the coolest consoles come out this year, the Nintendo Switch as well, to kind of support all of these new games. There's also a new console that I've been having a ton of fun with. And it's been a fantastic console. So in a way, it's been a very positive year. when it comes to video games. You know, that's why I'm saying it's one of the best years ever in video games. And then at the same time, it's been one of the worst years ever in video games because of all this controversy about loot boxes and monetization schemes, and now the whole thing, the patent that came into light from Activision, where they're trying to basically they're using I mean, most likely this is already implemented in some titles. Let's be completely honest here. I mean, I think a lot of they instantly said, no, we never did that. Is like, I'm pretty sure you have. Don't tell me you haven't. I mean, I'm just trying to be reasonable here. It most likely has already happened. And it's okay. That's okay. That's why we're here to talk it out, to hash it out, to talk about these things and discuss them. But ultimately, these monetization practices and these loot boxes and all this other stuff that is getting pummeled into games in order to squeeze as much money out of the consumers as possible is why I also think that it has been one of the worst years possible in gaming. So we have this kind of really, in a way, it's a balance because like, oh, there's all these good things happening. At the same time, there's all these bad things happening, right? In the industry. So there is a bit of a balance there. For all the good, there's a lot of bad. But I think we could do better. I think we could do much better. And I'm here to talk about all of that stuff today because an interesting thing that I used to tell my friends a while back, because you guys know I do YouTube videos and a lot of times I get contacted and people send me games and stuff. And I would always tell my friends, oh, you guys don't even know, this is my secret plan. My secret plan is I'm hoarding. I'm hoarding all of this stuff because games are like eventually going to get really bad. They're going to get so bad we're not going to want to play them. And then I have all of these games hoarded that I'll be able to play until the end of times. And I always said that as a joke. But the way things are going, it's getting real. It's getting very, very real. And in a way, it is very, very frightening because it's like there was a game, for instance, that I was planning on playing. That game was Shadow of War. And I loved the crap out of Shadow of Mordor. I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic game. I played it on Twitch, and I even recorded a full playthrough, put it on another channel and stuff. Some of you guys have watched that. Some of you guys haven't. But I had a lot of fun playing with playing on Shadow of Mordor. And I was hyped. I was super hyped. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons I played through Shadow of Mordor specifically this year was because Shadow of War was coming out. And I was like, oh, dude, I want to get this Shadow of Mordor thing settled so that I can get ready for Shadow of War. And then they announced that loot crate bullshit where you get orcs through loot. And I'm just like, I can't get my head around that. I can't. Like, I just legitimately cannot. Because, like, loot crates have left such a bad taste in my mouth that I literally cannot play that game. And I've had people tell me, oh, Rue, you should totally play it. It's fine. And several people, even in the media, have said, oh, it's fine. It only becomes a grind on the later levels. And you guys know that I don't have a huge problem with grind. I mean, at the end of the day, anyone here who plays Elite Dangerous and is aware of the fact that I have an Imperial Cutter, that should tell you a lot about how much I care about grinding. Grinding is usually not a big deal for me. What I can't get my head around is orcs coming out of a loot box. It just doesn't work. Like, my brain, I can only suspend my disbelief on certain things up to a point. When you're putting an orc inside a box, and for starters, I'm not a big fan of the whole thing of creating an orc army to begin with. If you guys have seen my playthrough, you know that at the end of the playthrough, I pretty much just like, oh, here are all your generals, all these people, and I fucking killed them all instantly, just so that I could kill everything else by myself, because the combat in that game is super easy, let's be honest. And then it's like, on top of that, they're inside a box. They're coming out of a box, which I have to basically, according to what people are saying, you have to go into the marketplace to open the box. So not only they're inside of a loot box, they're going to be random. the skill that I have in game means zero to the kind of orc that I will get. And I do mean literally zero. It doesn't matter if you're the best Shadow of War player in the world or you're the worst Shadow of War player in the world. Your skill contributes fuck all to your progression in terms of what kind of orcs you get. And then they're inside a box. My brain just still can't get over the fact that it's an orc in a box. I don't want it. And I can't play that. I can't get myself to play that game because of that specific mechanic. And I guess that might be because I think I'm a little bit older than the average gamer at this point. Although most of the younger gamers, they're playing mobile games in a way. So this is something that confuses me a little bit. So bear with me here, but it's like, it's almost, and I know for a fact that this is something that a lot of publishers target. They target younger audiences. And some of you guys might be wondering, why would you target a younger audience? Why wouldn't you go for the older audience, since it's pretty much almost proven at this point that the younger audiences are playing on mobile and the older audiences are actually the ones that want to play with one of these, with a controller. Because we, the older gamers, we can't fucking stand, playing on a touchscreen. I was looking for my phone. I don't even know where my phone is. I probably tossed it. It's probably in the kitchen or something. I was going to look for my phone to show you guys a touchscreen. But anyway, the younger audiences, they're the ones playing mobile games, and older gamers are actually the ones that want to pick up a controller and play for the most part. But you guys might be wondering, so why are they targeting the younger audiences? And the reasoning behind that, and this is the logic I think that they have behind it, is they target a younger audience because, people, as they get older, they get usually most of them, not most of them, but some of them tend to lose interest in video games. So once you get to a certain age, you're just not playing as many games anymore, or at least this is what they think. Whereas people that are younger, they will usually continue to play video games, like, say, from their 13s well into their 23s or something. Whereas, someone who's maybe 35, like me, maybe publishers think that by the time I get to 40, I'm going to be done with video games. So they would rather capture an audience that is younger, and then they get that fandom off of them for like 20 years or so, as opposed to like the 5 years or something they can get out of older gamers. At least that's the only logic that I see behind it. But ultimately, that logic ends up failing because, like I said, most of those younger people, they're actually playing mobile games. And most of the time, people who do play mobile games, they're the ones that end up not really transitioning into, console gamers, PC gamers, and that stuff. They just kind of move on with their life. It's like, oh, if that's too much of an investment, I just bought this new phone and I can play everything I want on this phone. That's usually the way it goes. But anyway, I'm not going to debate that much on that particular topic. I did want to get back to the whole thing where I was saying, I guess I'm getting old. Because I remember this is an interesting story. I'm not sure I've ever told this to anyone, but this is a story with two very good friends of mine. And I'm not saying this to criticize them. I'm saying this to kind of illustrate that maybe my age is, in fact, a factor as to how I look at all of these things, everything that is happening in the industry. So those very two good friends of mine are Hengist and Palytime. And this is an interesting story. I'm not sure how many people know about it, but a while back in Squadron, around the time that Assassin's Creed Unity came out, we played it on Squadron. We played Assassin's Creed Unity, and we decided that we were going to play the PlayStation 4 version. So what happened was, since we were doing this as a Squadron thing, Broadband TV paid for our copies of Assassin's Creed Unity. And we all went and we got it, and then we expensed it, and we all got Assassin's Creed Unity. We were getting ready to play Assassin's Creed Unity. We were testing out how the co-op features actually worked and all of that stuff. And we're about ready to start doing a video. And as we do this, I hear Palytime and Hengist talking about, oh, look, dude, you can buy these weapons like right now. And there's a hierarchy of weapons that you would be able to get in Assassin's Creed Unity, right? Like just distinct, more powerful weapons that you would be able to get. And I was extremely surprised when instantly, out of nowhere, like without even thinking too much about it, Angus just goes and he blows $30 on a weapon in Assassin's Creed Unity. I was like, dude, what the fuck? And it's like, oh no, dude, this is going to make it easier for us to do the video. And I was like, what? And Pally Time goes in and he spends $50 on a fucking Assassin's Creed weapon. And I'm just like, I'm dumbfounded. I'm like, my mind is fucking blown. Right? I'm like, So I'm playing the game with them, and we're all just having fun. Interestingly enough, Pally Time, with his weapon, was able to do more melee damage. Pally Time's weapon was a rifle. He was able to do more melee damage than me and Hengist, which I always thought was interesting, because Pally Time just like, he would pull out his rifle and just like bash people over the head with it, and it would deal more damage than a fucking hidden blade or something else that one of us would have. And I thought, you know, that really kind of illustrated how I look at video games versus how younger people potentially look at video games. Just like, they just went in and just like, fuck it, gonna buy one of the best weapons in the game with real money. Boom, they won. They fucking won. And if that is not pay to win, I don't know what is. And you guys are like, oh, it's a single player game, it's whatever. Yeah, but you know, that was when I realized that things are really, really changing, not just in gaming itself, but in gamer mentality in general. Just in general, you know? And it's something that kind of stuck with me forever, like how easily they just like, boom, done. I could never do that. I can't, because I kind of never really appreciated microtransactions all that much. Sometimes I'll do it for cosmetics. So for cosmetics, I kind of, you know, that's the other thing. It's like our brain has been conditioned in a way throughout the evolution of how gaming has gone. Our brains have been conditioned. We have begun to expect to pay for cosmetics, which is why it was not yet. Was it yesterday? No, it was the day before yesterday, which was the first time that I actually started playing Mario Odyssey, because I had an early copy and stuff, and I wanted to play it ahead of doing my video for you guys. So I started playing it the day before yesterday, and it just became, it was just this revelation for me, right? When I started playing Super Mario Odyssey, and I realized that Super Mario Odyssey was not trying to milk money out of me. At least not yet. I'm not saying that's not something that won't happen at a later date. Although I doubt it, because it is Super Mario after all. I highly doubt Nintendo would want to tarnish that specific image. Even Super Mario Run, which is their mobile game, is a one-time purchase. So it's like the revelation that occurred to me was like, so I can go around the level, I can pick up these purple coins that you have here, and picking these up, I can exchange these for cosmetic items. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, this is something that we have done so many years ago, stuff like this, where you would be able to customize your character with cosmetic items by unlocking certain things in game. Maybe finishing the game a certain way, you'd be able to dress your character up like, say, Metal Gear Solid 1, for instance. You were able to get a tuxedo for Snake. You were able to get all these things, like the bandana thing. You were able to get a ton of stuff. Some of them would even have like in-game implications stuff. They would be considered cheats almost. But ultimately, it's like achieving something in-game would unlock these things for you. But since then, we've kind of been conditioned that it's like, no. The extra suit? No, that's $10. A special hat? That's $5. That's the way that we've been conditioned to expect video games to be. And first it started only on free-to-play games, which I actually think is okay. On free-to-play games, whatever, go for it. Cosmetics, don't care. But then it came to games where we actually had to pay money. And somehow we've been conditioned to, it's okay, it's cosmetic, it doesn't affect in-game balance, so it's whatever. It doesn't matter, right? That's the way we've kind of started looking at things. And I guess when I played Super Mario Odyssey and I realized, see, this is what games could be like if these companies weren't so focused on making all of this money. And I want to bring this back to the whole topic of making money, because it is important that publishers make money and developers make money, because a lot of people are like, I want to pay at least as possible so that I can get this game. And I understand that, because money's hard to come by. As a matter of fact, I could talk about money for hours, because money is a serious problem that we have in our world, but that's a completely different topic. But I could talk about money for hours. But ultimately, I don't want to bring that up, because that's a whole nother can of worms. But it's like, it is important for the developers to make money, because they still have to pay these talented development teams that work over there. But it is also important that developers figure out a way to make money without the rest of us feeling like we're getting ripped off. Because ultimately, that will lead to better sales. Look at the case of The Witcher 3, for instance. Witcher 3 sold like gangbusters. Probably still sells like gangbusters, because I don't think a single person feels they've been ripped off on Witcher 3. Because there's just so much content, and there's no, oh, here's this exclusive thing that only this person's gonna. No, everybody got the DLC. Everybody got the DLC. I mean, with the exception of the season pass, which is additional content. What I'm saying is, like, those pre-orders and all this other bullshit, like, nobody got anything special for that. Like, some places I think were offering you a keychain or something, whatever, but no digital pre-order DLC, so to speak. And even the DLC that was around that everybody got was not that big of a deal on The Witcher 3. And it's like, that game will make so much money, will still make, like, it already made a ton of money for CG Projekt Red. It is going to make so much more money for them. And at the same time, not a single person feels they've been ripped off by Witcher 3. At least I don't think they do. I don't. Then again, I did get it for free. So it's kind of unfair. But let's say if I had put down money on Witcher 3, I wouldn't feel like I had gotten ripped off by Witcher 3. Want to know another game? Persona 5. Was there any DLC? I don't think there was a single bit of... No, there was DLC, like some clothing, some cosmetic bullshit, wasn't there? Yeah, I think they did come up with some cosmetic garbage for it, but ultimately, it's like, I don't think that was that big of a deal either. But what I'm getting at is, like, there needs to be a balance here. And I understand that they have their $1 million budgets, which that's what they always say. Oh, the development of video games these days, it's so expensive. We need all these loot boxes to make up for all of this money. And let me tell you about loot boxes while we're on the subject of loot boxes, because I've already spoken about loot boxes a while back. It's interesting because I've been complaining about loot boxes for a long time. As a matter of fact, some of you who used to watch the Squadron live streams when Overwatch first came up, you might have caught a couple of discussions between myself and a couple of people in those games where I would be like, dude, I just fucking hate getting... I mean, I wouldn't be that aggressive, but I would just say, dude, I just hate getting sprays and voices and all this other stuff on loot boxes. I feel bad. It never feels good to get those things on loot boxes. And they were telling me, no, dude, you're looking at it all wrong. See, now you have sprays and voices. And I was like, yeah, but I want skins. And everybody wants skins. Don't lie to me. Don't tell me you want those sprays and you want those voices and all those. Don't be a liar. You don't want that. Nobody wants that. Not a single person wants that. So let's talk about loot boxes. And we can start with the Overwatch ones. Here's an interesting little bit of information for you. Overwatch loot boxes are the reason why I no longer play Overwatch. I know. I'm going to let that one sink in for you guys a little. I love Overwatch. From a gameplay standpoint, I think it's a fucking fantastic game. Didn't it get like the third best game of 2016 in my list or something? Because I love that game. I think the game, from a gameplay standpoint, is fucking fantastic. I'm not talking about, you know, the meta and the higher tiers of competitive gameplay, because there's always going to be salty people up there and some people that are super upset about how Blizzard does balancing and this and that and the other. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the day-to-day gameplay of, you know, just a regular player in Overwatch. I think that is fantastic. So why did the loot boxes made me not want to play Overwatch anymore? Well, for starters, Blizzard usually provides additional loot boxes for you to playing the least popular game modes in the arcade. That's usually what they do. So what ends up happening is anyone who plays Overwatch, obviously they want to go do those things first so that they get the loot boxes. Like, for instance, probably there's going to be something on Halloween, I'm assuming, that's probably going on right now. And they probably have to do some playlist that is not the regular playlist, that is not the regular game mode. And usually those modes feel pretty lame to me. Maybe that's just me, but they feel pretty lame. A lot of the stuff that is not the regular play modes feels lame to me. I don't like it. Like a lot of the arcade stuff, the 3-on-3, the 1v1 particularly, like, dude, fuck that shit. I hate that. I friggin' hate that. Game was not made to be played like that. And it was just not made to be played like that. Like, that is something I can see someone doing once in a while just for fun or something, but I friggin' hate it. I can't do that. I don't like it. And there's a lot of other game modes like that in the arcade that I don't care for. And usually, doing those would reward me with a loot box. So it's basically like Blizzard telling you, why don't you go ahead and eat your vegetables, and we will give you something for it. We'll give you some fries if you eat your vegetables first. And when I'm playing a video game, you know, I want to do the fun thing. Like, I want to do the regular modes. The regular modes are way more fun than any of that other stuff in the arcade. And so what I ended up doing is whenever I got together with friends to play Overwatch, everybody wanted to do the other things. And then I would do the other things. And then when we got our loot boxes, I'd be like, dude, I fucking hate this game right now, because I would have played modes that I didn't like. I would be doing things that I didn't care for just to get those loot boxes. And then the worst part, the very worst part, is that you know that there's a high chance that you open those loot boxes and there's nothing good in them. Like, there's not a single way for you to influence what comes out of that loot box. I mean, I guess there is during the 1 year period, their 1 year anniversary, you could get the special 1 year anniversary loot boxes. During the Halloween, you get the special Halloween loot boxes. You guys get what I'm saying. You're not going to be able to influence, okay, I want a skin for Torbjorn. Fuck you. I want things for Torbjorn. No, fuck you. You get a random loot box. Here's some Widowmaker shit. I remember at one point I got like 2 or 3 of that stupid Super Saiyan Genji skin. Legendary. Legendary. Green Super Saiyan Genji. So excited. Genji. Character that I never play and that I have zero interest in playing. Here's this legendary skin for it. And you see, that stuff burned me out. Just straight up burned me out. Let's talk about loot boxes some more. Let's talk about Paragon, for instance. A game that I love. Love Paragon. A lot of people ask me about Paragon every day. They ask me, Rurikhan, when are you playing Paragon? There's this change, that change, this thing that happened. And I always tell them, next time I'm playing Paragon is when they change the matchmaking. I want to make sure people understand that. It's like, the only reason I'm not playing Paragon is because the matchmaking in that game is terrible. Or at least it was terrible. I don't think it's been patched yet. But as soon as they patch matchmaking, I'm getting back into Paragon. But first, they need to fix that matchmaking, because, like, it's no fun for me to just roll up into a match against a bunch of tryhards, because I'm very casual when it comes to MOBAs. I'm super casual about that shit. And that is my interest level. I want to remain a casual MOBA player, and I do not want to be matchmade against fucking tryhards. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Anyway, So Paragon. Loot boxes in Paragon as well. They weren't there at the start. They're there now. Interesting story about loot boxes in Paragon. I've mentioned this a bunch of times. You guys can actually go watch. There's a live stream where I opened up, I think it was 10 crates. It's whatever the maximum you could buy combination at the time. Maximum you could buy combination of crates and boxes, which is about, I don't know, 40 euros worth of currency or something, which I'm not complaining about the currency, mind you, because I've gotten tons of free stuff in Paragon. I'm not complaining about the currency. I did put like 50 euros or something at some point into the game because I figured I wanted to get even more stuff than the stuff that I had gotten for free because I was playing a lot. And so I was invested in it. I'm still invested in it as soon as the friggin' matchmaking gets updated. But anyway, so I buy the biggest fucking bundle of crates that you could get in that game because I wanted one skin. One skin. And for those of you that are curious what skin it was, there's a character called Greystone, and he's got a skin where he almost looks like Iron Man. It's got like this hot rod red and a little bit of yellow to his armor, and he looks like Iron Man, basically. It was Iron Man if he had a sword and a shield, and I thought that skin looked fucking fantastic. Here's the downside. At the time, I'm not sure if you can now, but at the time, you couldn't just up and buy that skin for money, because if you could, that's what I would have done. I would straight up just like buy that skin for money. Boom, done deal. No problem. But no, that skin was only available through loot crates. And I was so frustrated because I bought those 10 loot crates and I was like 90% sure I'm not going to get the skin that I want out of all the skins that can possibly come out of these crates, because there's tons of skins. There's no way I'm going to get the specific skin I want. On their defense, I do have to say I got a lot of skins, and a lot of skins for characters I did play in the middle of all those crates. But ultimately, I didn't get the skin I want. So how do you think I felt? You know, it's like there's only one thing that I want out of these fucking loot crates, but there's no way for me to influence what that thing is, or for me to ensure that I can get that one thing. I was super frustrated. I've never, ever bought another loot box after that. I was like, yeah, I'm done. It's like, it doesn't matter, right? It's like, unless you're someone who I just want more things in general. Sure, go get the loot box. But if you're someone who's like, no, I'd like to have one or two specific things. No, forget about that. You're never going to get them. You're never going to get them. Forget about it. They might as well not fucking exist in loot boxes. That's the way that I look at it. Another loot box story, and this one, a lot more recent. And a lot of you guys probably heard me talk about this one quite a bit. This one's about Destiny 2. You guys remember how tons and tons of people, tons and tons of professional reviewers specifically said, the loot boxes in Destiny, they don't have any impact in gameplay. Bullshit! Sorry, I just got something stuck in my throat. And also I'm allergic to bullshit, so I kind of have to call it out. So these loot boxes that apparently have no influence in gameplay are the main reason that I've begun to lose interest in Destiny 2. And I feel like shit, because I actually started a clan and I led my clan through the raid and I had a blast. And I think a lot of the people there had a blast too. And lately I found myself not even logging in to do the weekly activities in Destiny 2. Because I become so frustrated. There's also another fact, though, which is the simple fact that most of you guys in my channel, you guys are not particularly interested in watching Destiny 2 in my channel. Let's be completely honest about that, because I get very low audiences whenever I'm live streaming Destiny. But anyway, beyond that, I had a blast playing Destiny 2, and I don't regret the time that I've spent in Destiny 2, not by a long shot. But it all came, I wouldn't even say a screeching halt, because it wasn't something that happened suddenly, but it did come to a halt. My enjoyment of the game came to a halt because I'm very much a min-maxer. At least to the best of my ability, you know? I try to min-max on most games that I've played. Well, not always like super hyper min-max. Like, for instance, we've been seeing the playthrough that I've been doing of Dragon's Dogma. I'm not min-maxing that much in there. I min-max a little bit, but not super hyper mega min-max, because I know that I could be doing a lot more damage as a Mystic Knight if I had leveled up as a sorcerer and then all these other things. But I'm just like, I'm okay with the way I am in Dragon's Dogma. Now, when it comes to Destiny, Destiny is a different game, because whereas in Dragon's Dogma, even in a hard mode, you can get by. If you know what you're doing, you can get by even if your character is not like optimized to the nth degree, right? You can use items, you can use all of these different tools. There's plenty of things at your disposal. Now, when it comes to Destiny, you can get by as well, but you feel like shit, because like, you know that you can do much better with something that is probably simple, right? At least that's usually the way that I would feel. I'd be like, okay, I want to optimize my build for this. I want to optimize my build for that. And the first thing that frustrated me in Destiny 2, for starters, was the balance of classes, of the subclasses in the Titan. I was like, what? Okay. It's like, why would anyone that wants to deal damage play anything other than a striker? I don't know. He's got 2 fucking grenades. Throws 2 grenades, they can deal pulse damage. As a matter of fact, they can deal so much fucking damage, it's ridiculous. I could top the damage meters pretty much almost on every attempt of anything that I would do in the raid because of those 2 fucking grenades. That's how powerful it was. And then you would look at the other classes and they would seem quite a bit lackluster by comparison. But still, I wanted to do one of the other classes because I felt it benefited the group better. And the other class was the Sunbreaker, because with the Sunbreaker, you can buff your team and you can do cool stuff for your team with the way that your abilities work. So I started working towards the Sunbreaker set. And I started working towards getting all the Sunbreaker things that I needed. And as luck would have it, I was actually able to get the best chest, in my opinion, for the build that I wanted to get, which was the something furnace, which was the one that's just like a chest piece that's always on fire. So I had that exotic chest piece. I was super happy about it. I was getting all the weapons that I know. I was getting pretty much everything that I needed. Until I've reached a halt, which was like, okay, so now I just need a specific mod for my gauntlets and a specific mod for my Titan mark. Actually, screw that. Not even a specific mod, just a solar mod. So there's 3 types of solar mod. There's mods that will reduce all of your cooldowns. There's mods that will reduce your melee cooldowns. There's mods that will reduce your grenade cooldowns. And I'm like, you know what? Just give me any one of these 3. Any one. And a month went by. That is a month of me actively playing Destiny 2, of me doing the weekly quests, of me doing the raids, of me leveling up as much as I could to get the bright engrams, of me doing all of these things 1 month. And I needed 2 mods. But because of how the progression works in that game, because it's all about loot boxes, and I'm not saying it has to be money loot boxes. It could be the loot boxes from the guy that sells the shit at the gunsmith, whatever, Banshee 44. There's plenty of ways to get that. And basically I did my very best effort for a month to get the 2 mods. I didn't get them. And that frustrated the fuck out of me, because I'm like, I'm looking at my character and it's got almost everything perfect with the exception of those 2 mods that I can't get because of RNG loot. Now you can tell me that's Bungie's way of keeping me playing, but guess what? It had the opposite effect, because I lost interest, because I can't further develop my character, and I've lost interest in playing my character because he feels like a gimp piece of shit. He's not a gimp piece of shit. He's really powerful, but in my eyes, the simple fact that I needed those 2 mods and I couldn't get them, it made me feel like my character's garbage. My character's garbage because I don't have these 2 things, and pissed me off. And then there's another thing in there, because the whole thing about that game, it's not even the loot crates. I'm not even talking about the paid loot crates. I'm talking about there's loot crates for everything in that game. Literally every form of gear progression in Destiny 2 is a loot crate in its essence. Whether you get that loot crate by playing the game or whether you get that loot crate by paying money, it's a loot crate. So here's another thing. One of the best PvE weapons, because I don't care that much about PvP. You guys know me, not big into PvP, so I've always been PvE. One of the best PvE weapons is called the Nameless Midnight. Now, this is a scout rifle that fires explosive rounds. It's a beast. It's a fucking beast. Beast of a weapon. Now, as I was starting to play Destiny 2, I didn't pay attention to the rewards that were coming. I was like, dude, I'm going to replace every fucking quest reward by the time I get to the end of the game. So whatever. I didn't even pay attention to it. And instead, I think I got Origin Story or whatever it was, the auto rifle. And then eventually I broke that down too because it was too low light level. And everything was about getting the higher light level, right? So there's a quest where you can 100% get that thing, but it needs to be on a new character. You get that once. You get a shot at having that scout rifle once per playthrough. And I fucked it up because I wasn't paying attention. Whatever. But then you can also get that rifle later down the line if you do strikes, which as luck would have it, I love doing strikes. I think they're fun. Strikes are almost like instances in World of Warcraft. You go through them real fast, you're done. It's like 15 minutes per strike, something like that. So I was like, okay, I need to get the Nameless Midnight, so let's run some strikes. And again, this was during that same month where I was trying to get those 2 mods that I needed, because basically you can be farming strikes, you can be farming mods, you can be farming all those things as you are playing the game. And in that month, guess what I also didn't get? The Nameless Midnight. And I know, and people told me, they're like, Rurikhan, just make a new character. Play through the game again and get your thing. And I was like, see, I don't want to be forced to play another character. I made a very conscious decision when I started playing Destiny 2, because that was a mistake that I did in Destiny 1. I was like, oh, I'm going to play all the 3 characters. It's going to be great. And I never had as much fun in Destiny 1 as I had in Destiny 2, because in Destiny 2, I said, no, fuck all the other characters. I'm going to be a Titan, and I'm going to be the best fucking Titan I can possibly be. And I had way more fun doing that than spreading my attention through 3 different characters, because I knew Titans inside and out. I knew exactly what I wanted everybody to do whenever there was a Titan in the party. I'm like, here's what I need you to do. Okay? Here's what you got to do as a Titan, because I knew exactly what had to be done. And again, I had way more fun specializing myself that way than necessarily, playing all the 3 classes, doing all these things. Even though I think ultimately Destiny 2 is designed for you to play all 3 classes so that you can do the weeklies 3 times a week and, go about it your way. I think Destiny 2 does a lot of things better than Destiny 1, but I think the RNG elements of it are ultimately what put me off. There's still way too much RNG. I couldn't get a Nameless Midnight, and I couldn't bring myself to level another character because I wasn't having fun. And that, coupled with the fact that I couldn't get 2 mods because fucking loot boxes to keep players playing until their fucking heads explode, that actually burned me out. I guess my head exploded sooner than everybody else's. I don't fucking know. But I'm very frustrated with that situation. So ultimately, here we have so far 3 very distinct loot box situations. The Overwatch thing, the Paragon thing, the Destiny thing, that as opposed to get me on the hook to keep playing a game and keep, buying into their scheme of me just getting the loot boxes and getting all this stuff and, the addiction factor of that actually pushed me away. Straight up pushed me away. And another one, Shadow of War. That one pushed me away so fast I didn't even fucking get to play the game. That's how fast that one pushed me away. So there you go. There's your loot box stories. That's what I think about loot boxes. Now, one of the things about loot boxes is that they're meant to keep players engaged in a video game for as long as possible, right? That's one of the things about loot boxes. They're meant to get you invested, get you engaged, get you to play their game and keep playing their game. And together with that, there's another thing that they do to try and get players to be involved in a video game for as often as possible. And that is to try and force multiplayer on a lot of video games. A lot of video games do not need multiplayer, as far as I'm concerned. And a good example of that is the BioWare brand of multiplayer, which is interesting because I actually like some of the mechanics of that multiplayer. Like, for instance, I like the co-op aspects of Dragon Age Inquisition. I love that. I think it's great. I think playing cooperatively with my friends through those levels, even though I think it's extremely bare bones, I think it could be a lot better, I still liked it. And ultimately, what happens? Loot boxes happen. And loot boxes destroy the whole experience. Because, like, okay, I want to play as all the dwarven classes. Because you guys know me. I'm a fanatic about dwarves. It's just a thing, right? So I'm like, I want to be the alchemist. And I grinded my fucking balls off to get that alchemist. And I do mean, like, I've played a lot of hours of Dragon Age Inquisition multiplayer. A lot of hours. And again, the frustration set in because I think I got nearly all the other classes before I eventually was able to unlock the alchemist. And I thought that was fucking ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. It's just some loot box nonsense that doesn't need to happen. And anyway, on the subject of every single game needing multiplayer, let's talk about it. Do you really think that multiplayer is what's going to make players stick around and play your video game? Is that really a thing that should be happening? Let me give you a couple of interesting examples. Horizon Zero Dawn. That didn't have multiplayer. That game's fucking fantastic. On the runner-up for one of my best games of the year. Nier Automata. That game doesn't have multiplayer. Doesn't fucking need it. Again, one of the best games I've played this year. Easily. The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Zero multiplayer. And The Legend of Zelda is going to come up a lot more times throughout this big rant of mine that I have going here. No multiplayer. Didn't need it. Fucking fantastic game. It's going to get 2 pieces of DLC. First piece of DLC already very interesting to me. The hard mode. I haven't even done the Trials of the Sword because I kind of got entertained with other things and got deviated from my way in hard mode. But again, the base game itself, there's so much innovation in The Legend of Zelda. That one is, like, currently, I think, the best game that I've played this year. Fucking fantastic game. Guess what it doesn't have? Multiplayer. Guess what else it doesn't have? Loot boxes. Well, I guess it kind of has loot boxes in the form of amiibos. I mean, who the fuck cares? Do you really need the items that the amiibos give you? You don't. You don't need them for anything. Zero. They have, like, those really do have zero impact in the game because the game is not hard. You know, if you think the game is hard, play on normal, you'll be fine. Just don't play hard mode. There you go. Game's not hard at all. You don't need it to progress at all. And you don't feel the pressure to progress because it's not a multiplayer game. You don't fucking care. Gravity Rush. Gravity Rush actually did have social features, though, which were interesting. I'm talking about Gravity Rush 2. Gravity Rush 2 is a criminally underrated game, by the way. That game also came out this year. It's a fucking fantastic game. I haven't gotten around to finishing it. I plan on doing so, though. That game is amazing. And if you haven't checked it out yet, and if you don't have anything you want to play right now, wholeheartedly advise check out Gravity Rush 2. So much worth it. So much worth it. Anyway, Witcher 3 doesn't have multiplayer. Doesn't need it. Persona 5. Do you think Persona 5 needed multiplayer? So all of these things where it's like, oh, and our game needs multiplayer to be successful. I think out of all the games I mentioned, there's one game that wasn't successful in that list. That's Gravity Rush 2. And it wasn't successful because I don't think the press did a good job of covering it. Because that game is fucking fantastic. That game is fucking fantastic. But all these other games in this list, all successful video games. All extremely successful video games. Like I said, Witcher 3 is going to be banking for CD Projekt Red for years to come. For years to come. Okay? That's how successful that game was. With no multiplayer, no loot boxes, no bullshit. Going to be generating profit for years to come. Now, another concept there, which links with what I was just talking about, which is that they wanted multiplayer in games to keep players playing, right? another interesting concept there is, why do you need to keep players playing? How is the amount of time someone plays your video game somehow a measure for success? Look at Limbo. People play Limbo once, they're done. Good game. Everybody says good things about Limbo. Me personally, I never played it. It's not my kind of game personally. But it's a successful game for all intents and purposes. Inside, same thing, same people. Very successful game. You play it once, you're probably done. I'm not sure on the case of Inside. And I'm pretty sure it's not a very long game. Little Nightmares. That one is a game I did play. Game's really cool. Pretty short. Play once, done. Is it a bad game? No, it's not. Just because someone plays your game once and they're done does not mean your game was not a success. Now, depending on the amount of sales your game makes, that could influence it. But then again, all of the bullshit that you're doing to those games by adding these forced modes and making every game in the world be a fucking open world game, that is going to cut on your bottom line. Because people are not going to be happy when they see that shit. Like, look at Mass Effect Andromeda. The massive amount of fan outcry just like completely smashing that game to bits. Like, there was so much negativity around Mass Effect Andromeda that very few people were actually able to look at the things that were good in the game, because there were good things in the game. I liked the action in the game. I liked the combat in the game. I liked a lot of things in Mass Effect Andromeda, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I liked some things in Mass Effect Andromeda. There was also some really fucked up shit, like I turned the planet Sky black because of a bug. The game was a fucking glitchy mess on a lot of aspects, and a lot of the open world stuff was pretty disappointing, and a lot of the stuff in there also felt like a grind. But ultimately, I still enjoyed parts of that game. I still enjoyed it. But all of that multiplayer, the forced multiplayer shit, the way they locked classes behind loot crates and multiplayer, just like they did in Dragon Age Inquisition, the way they forced the open world on a team that wasn't ready to do an open world game when Mass Effect did not need to be open world. Let's be honest, it didn't need it. Mass Effect 2, fucking fantastic game. Guess what it's not? It's not an open world game. Mass Effect 3, to me, I still think it's a fantastic game. A lot of people didn't like the ending. I always said I prefer the journey over the ending. I didn't have a problem with the ending of Mass Effect 3. But basically, it's like, guess what they're not? They're not, in their essence, multiplayer games, even though Mass Effect 3 did force the multiplayer thing. But in its essence, Mass Effect has never been a multiplayer game, and it should have never been a multiplayer game. And what are they doing now with Anthem? It is a team that is not used to doing multiplayer games. They're doing a Destiny game. They're doing a game that is going to be EA's response to Destiny. It's got so much hype behind it. I'm scared. I'm scared of the amount of loot box bullshit they're going to put in there, the amount of shit they're going to put in there to just force me to keep coming back to the game because I feel this need to level up my character, because I feel this need to get this particular piece of loot. Like, I don't want it. I don't want none of that. You know, I'm probably going to play it because I'm curious about it. I'm curious to see what BioWare is doing next. But let's be honest here. I mean, not every game should have to be an open world game. Not every game should have to be a multiplayer game. You know? And ultimately, the amount of time someone plays your video game should not dictate the value of your video game. You want to know another game that I've played didn't really take me that much to finish? Enjoyed the fuck out of it. God of War 3. God, that game is good. That game's fucking fantastic. I loved it. I think it took me like 7 hours to finish it or something. I was very noobish when I played God of War 3. I barely had any experience in console gaming when I played God of War 3. Loved the crap out of that game. That game is awesome. And guess what? When I finished playing it, I think I paid full price for that game, by the way. And when I finished playing it after my 6 or 7 hours that I had playing that game, you know what I didn't feel? I didn't feel like that game ripped me off. Because it did what it had to do, took me 6 hours to finish it, and I felt I got exactly as much value as I wanted out of it. It was a good fucking game, and I remember it to this day with fond memories. God of War 3 is a great game. And I don't care it only lasts 5 to 7 hours, depending on the person that's playing it. It doesn't matter. Is it a really good 5 or 7 hours? Why do you care then? Why does it matter how long it took you to finish it? Did you have fun? Good. That's what matters. That is the only thing that matters. Another game, Vanquish. I think it took me 5 hours to finish that game. There's a full playthrough in the channel right now. I think it's like 5 or 6 episodes. Game is fantastic. Fucking some of the best 5 or 6 hours I've ever spent playing a video game was the first time I played through Vanquish. Guess what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I never went back. It's got replay features if I wanted to. If I really wanted to dive into it, I could replay through the levels and try to make a better time, kill more enemies, increase my score. You know, it's got those features in there. So you could potentially extend the amount of time that you play the game. You know what it doesn't do? It doesn't cheapen itself out by creating a needless multiplayer mode because it knows it doesn't need it. Because it knows that's not the experience they're trying to portray. And that's important. That is very important that as a developer, I think that the developers need to get more in touch with the publishers and explain them the vision of their game. And publishers need to understand not every game is supposed to be a game where players sink 60 to 100 hours of their time into. Not every game is like that. Some games deserve more. Some games are less. And by deserve, I mean some games, you know, should be played for longer periods of time. Like Elite Dangerous is a game that you will play for long and long periods of time. But it is also a game that doesn't force you to do anything. Like, you set your own goals in Elite Dangerous. There's no invisible gating behind it. You set your goals. You do what you want to do. And that's that. There's no, you know, oh, you got to do this bit because of that thing. Or you got to play this thing in multiplayer. You can play the whole thing in single player, pretty much. Although you do need to be online, which kind of sucks. But, you know, that's the price of that particular bit of technology. Now, as I was saying, not every game needs to be an open world game. And this is very important. This is a big topic that I want to bring up because a lot of games are actually diluted by becoming open world, such as the case of Mass Effect. Mass Effect Andromeda was effectively a worse game because it was open. It would have been much better if it was made in the style of Mass Effect 2, for instance. It would have been a much better game, hands down. And nobody can deny it. Not a single person can deny that Mass Effect Andromeda would have been a better game if it was not open world. And another big problem with open world games that try to consume as much time as they can out of you is that they tend to overstay their welcome. Case in point, Shadow of War. Now, I personally can't talk too much about that because I haven't played the game. There's not a whole lot I can really say, but I have read a lot of the reviews, and pretty much every single reviewer said the grind to unlock the true ending of that game wears out its welcome. There's too much grind at the end of the game, and nobody wants to do that grind. Because, like I said, in this effort for them to get players to keep playing their video game for longer periods of time, what ends up happening is they end up forcing players to do things they don't want to do. And that is what happens in Shadow of War. And the other problem with this whole open world thing, every game is open world, you're essentially doing something that could be considered the mutually assured destruction. Because if every game that comes out from here until the year 2020 is an open world game, you know what's going to happen? There's not enough people, there's not enough market. Not enough people is wrong. There's not enough market for every game to be an open world. There simply isn't. And that's why a lot of games will die along the way. Like Mass Effect Andromeda, that died. Because there are other games that are doing open world better. And if you try to do open world and you don't get it right because your developers don't believe that game should be an open world, you're going to fuck it up and your game is going to die. And not just your game. A lot of other games are going to die. Even good ones, even good open world games will eventually die because whichever game happens to get the most publicity, whichever game happens to be the one that somehow rises to the top, that will be the game that people play, and everything else is garbage. We've seen the same thing with massive multiplayer online games where pretty much everybody plays World of Warcraft. Don't say it isn't. That's the fucking case. You can say, oh no, people play EVE Online. Sure they do. They play EVE Online. That's the only other game that you can probably mention, right? Because it's a very different game from World of Warcraft. But like you can talk about Black Desert Online, you can talk about Terra Online, you can talk about all these other free-to-play Korean MMOs and all this other stuff. Let's be completely honest here, people. None of those games is doing well. World of Warcraft is doing okay. It's not even World of Warcraft is not doing well. Okay? That's what we've seen happen with MMOs. There were too many MMOs. What happened? One of the MMOs survived. All of the other MMOs are dying. That's just the way of the world. Now we're seeing the same thing with open world games. In the past, we've seen it with other things. I had another example at the back of my head, but it's gone. But we've seen other games. We're also kind of seeing a little bit almost the Souls-like resurgency as well. It's almost like every game wants to be like Dark Souls. Luckily, there's not yet enough of those. I mean, there are several of those games, but I'm saying it's not enough. It's not yet enough of a volume of Souls-like games that are just like flooding the market. That everything's like, oh my God, there's too many of these yet. But friggin' open world games, and let's face it, open world games, the worst part about open world games is that they don't even try to evolve at this point. Like, for instance, for all the good that I say about Horizon Zero Dawn, I mean, it's a fantastic title. I love it. It's a really great game. I can't wait to play the DLC. But that game has very little innovation from the open world standpoint. You collect herbs. You go up on towers, except the towers move. Towers reveal areas of the map that will then reveal other activities that you can do. There's camps, just like in Far Cry. You can take over camps, then they become yours. You know, it's like this formula that Ubisoft created in a way. Because, I mean, I'm not saying Ubisoft created open world. They created, they perfected the formula a little bit with Assassin's Creed and Far Cry and all that stuff. And everything that comes after that is kind of like the same thing. It's like this list of chores for you to do. Shadow of War. Shadow of War is essentially Far Cry with orcs. Let's face it. Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, it's Far Cry with orcs. Difference is the taking over the forts. You actually have armies that are fighting with you. And there's the Nemesis system. Okay, I'll give them the Nemesis system. That's innovation right there. The Nemesis system, fucking fantastic. Cool thing. But it's like ultimately, the open world genre has not evolved that much until The Legend of Zelda come around. See, The Legend of Zelda, that brought new life into open world, I felt. Personally. Not saying you guys have to agree. Damn, my nose is killing me. It's really itchy. Not saying you guys have to agree, but I think Legend of Zelda did a lot of really cool things. Like the fact that you go up on towers and sure, it reveals a part of the map, but it doesn't tell you, go do this. It's more like you go on a tower and you see something interesting with your binoculars and you're like, I want to go there and see what that is. And you go and you do and you have your own little adventure along the way. And that feels organic. And that feels great. And that, to me, is the reason why I don't give Legend of Zelda a hard time for making an open world game, because they actually worked at bringing something new to the table. But Horizon Zero Dawn, I'm going to give that a hard time for being an open world game because, So every game should not have to be an open world, and the fact that every game is being an open world means you're effectively cannibalizing your audiences, and you will eventually create this bubble that is going to burst and everybody's going to fucking explode in it, and a lot of games are going to die as a result of the fact that you want everything and everyone to be open world. Pretty soon, you're going to see fucking Sonic open world if that's not already a thing. Which it might be, and I'm not aware of it. But anyway, yeah, mutually assured destruction. Just like the MMOs, open world games will come and go, and yeah, there's going to be a lot of people struggling if they want to make an open world game. Let's just put it like that. As a matter of fact, I have to say, I respect Alex more than a lot of these other games and open worlds. And you guys are like, oh my God, Alex looked buggy as fuck. It looked like this and it had these problems and that thing. And yeah, it did. Alex has a lot of problems. But as an open world game, at least it's trying to fucking do something interesting. I'm not sure whether or not it achieves it, because in the 3 hours I've spent with the game, I didn't see enough of it. But I gotta say, I at least like what they're trying to do. At least they're trying to do their own thing. They're not just following in on everyone's footsteps of like, here's a list of chores. Here's a fucking indicator of where you have to do these chores. Go, do these menial tasks, you know? So in that regard, I have a lot of respect for what Alex is trying to do, more so than a lot of these other open world games. And at least Alex isn't trying to fucking sell you loot boxes. There's that too, I guess. That also is a really positive thing that is going for it. Got to give you that much. So we talked about the time played and not equaling value. Oh yeah, here's the other thing. Let's talk about the high budget. Everybody's always saying, oh, but we need to make more money, and that's why we need the loot crates. We need the loot crates to make more money so that we can make our games look better. Why is that so important? The whole make our games look better. Why is that important? Like, I understand a good visual experience. It's a fantastic fucking thing. Look at Uncharted 4. Look at the latest thing they did. What's it called? The expansion thing. I've shown it on the channel. I forget the name. Doesn't matter. Look at the latest entries of Uncharted, basically. The Lost Legacy. That's what it's called. The Lost Legacy. Look at the latest entries of Uncharted. Game looks freaking phenomenal. It's a really great game. I love playing through Uncharted 4. I think it was a fucking fantastic game. Why does every game need to have that level of visual fidelity? It doesn't. Every game does not need to have that level of visual fidelity. So if you think making your game look the way you want it to look is going to need you to have loot boxes, in all honesty, make your game look worse and don't do the loot boxes. I'm not even kidding. Just like straight up, make your game look worse. I mean, you don't need to have photorealistic. Every game doesn't need to be photorealistic. As a matter of fact, instead of making your game look worse, make your game look different. If you think your budget is not enough and you think you're going to have to charge people for loot boxes, you're going to have to do some tacked on bullshit multiplayer to force people to pay for additional things, make your game look worse. Make your game look different. Here's some examples. Persona 5. What? Persona 5, everyone who's played that game will tell you the game looks amazing. It's got fantastic presentation. It's got an amazing art direction and an even more amazing art style. Interestingly enough, none of that is visual fidelity. None of that is transmitted through visual fidelity. When it comes to the complexity of the visuals in Persona, that is not in terms of like, compare it to an Uncharted? Come on. You kidding me? You put the visuals next to an Uncharted, and it's like, it's not a highly demanding, visually intensive, game. And yet everybody loves the way Persona looks. Because it looks good, because it's about the presentation, because they did really good work with their art style, because they had a fantastic art direction. They worked with what they had, and they didn't need to bring loot boxes, and their game is fucking successful as hell. That's the way you got to do things. You want another one? The Legend of Zelda. That's right. Legend of Zelda, from a visual standpoint, it looks great. Why? Because of the art direction and the art style. But you look at that thing with, like, pay close attention on a television, you will see some fucked up textures in the distance, but nobody cares. Because the gameplay is great, because the animations are great, because the characters look great, because the art style supports it, so it doesn't fucking matter. Doesn't matter how good Legend of Zelda looks. What matters is how good it plays. And what matters is that it doesn't try to milk you for every fucking cent you have. It's not throwing fucking loot boxes in your face to support how it looks. You want an even bigger example? You want an example that's going to just destroy your face? Minecraft. Minecraft looks like ass. There you go. I said it. Minecraft looks like fucking ass. Guess what? One of the biggest successes in gaming history since fucking ever. Looks like ass. There you go. Interestingly enough, also not trying to rip you off. Except maybe in the consoles. I don't know how mods work on consoles. But on the PC side of things, I never felt like I was ripped off by Minecraft. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? Like they're all out there chasing the fucking visual thing and the high fidelity and thing. Listen, leave that to the professionals. You know, some people will be able to do great innovations in visuals, and that is great. If you feel you need to sell us loot boxes in order to innovate that way, don't innovate. Do better. You know, instead of going after the highest possible fidelity graphics and motion capture, change the art style. Go after a good-looking art. Do not fuck us over with loot boxes because we don't want that shit. And the community has shown they don't want that shit. Another example, World of Warcraft. Although, not sure how good that example is because World of Warcraft is falling into tons of microtransactions and tons of other things. But ultimately, from a visual standpoint, it's not that impressive. Not really that impressive. It's got a good art style. Not really that impressive. Another example of a game that, visually speaking, from terms of visual fidelity and stuff, Overwatch. It looks good. It doesn't look Uncharted good. It looks different because it's got, again, good art style, good art direction, but Overwatch is also milking you for every dollar with loot boxes, so I'm not exactly sure why I put that one there. Anyway, another game. And this is the last example in my list about the high budget, high visuals thing. Monster Hunter. Sure, the new Monster Hunters are going to look a lot better. That's for sure. But like the old Monster Hunters, they didn't need to look good. People will still play them because it's a good game and because you don't feel like you're getting ripped off. Anyway, basically throughout today's video, we talked about the loot crates. We talked about how not every game should need multiplayer. We talked about how not every game needs to be an open world game. And we talked about how not every game needs to blow us away with the best looking visuals. As a matter of fact, some games blow us away simply with their art style, as illustrated by Persona 5 and The Legend of Zelda. And there's more. There's way more examples I could bring up. I just wanted to give some examples that are near and dear to my heart. And ultimately, I just wish that this didn't turn into the situation that it is right now, where it is essentially players lashing out at publishers and there's just like mudslinging on both sides, and then publishers not giving a fuck because they just want to make more money. And it's like, we just need to find that happy medium where it's like developers don't have ridiculous budgets because they want players to be able to see the hair on a character's asshole, and players don't feel like they're getting ripped off by fucking greedy ass loot boxes like Shadow of War, which is a game that I'm never going to play now. Well, I might play it. Maybe when it comes down in price and it's worth fucking nothing. I'll buy it then, because I still want to play that game. But I'm not going to buy it now. I'm not going to support this fucking bullshit loot box situation. As a matter of fact, even Destiny 2 is like, I'm almost pissed off at the fact that I created so much content for Destiny 2, taking into account how frustrated I've became with that game, how frustrated and disillusioned I became with that game. And at the end, there is something that I would like to bring up that I thought was interesting. And that is that something that I was looking at, but at least of the games that I currently have on the Switch, none of them has loot boxes yet. Could Nintendo save us all? I don't know. One thing's for sure. Super Mario Odyssey made me look to a world that used to be. You know? A world that could be if publishers could get their act together. I'm not saying, that publishers don't need to make money. They do, because they have a lot of people to pay. They need a, and that's the thing. Like I always said, the big problem here is not even the publishers. It is the money. But like I said, I could talk about the money for hours. But the fact of the matter is also that EA, for instance, for all the flack that they get. Oh, I didn't even talk about the Battlefront 2 loot boxes. Yeah, that's probably going to be a game that I don't know if I'm going to play yet. Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, EA and Activision and all these other companies, 2K, there's a lot of people working there. And there's actually a lot of talented people working there, as you can see by the passion with which people complain about their games. These complaints that are coming from fans, some of them very harsh complaints about how these businesses are being run, it's like these all come from a place of passion, because ultimately, if people didn't care, they just wouldn't buy the games and they would be done with it. There's a lot of passion, which means there's clearly a lot of talent on that side of the table. There's a lot of talented individuals in these companies. These talented individuals do need to get paid, but they need to figure out a way to budget properly so that their games don't become these monstrous things that they can never get their money back. A good example of that is Tomb Raider. The reboot of Tomb Raider, which I thought was a fantastic game, apparently never made enough. Because again, they're budgeting, and these games, they cannibalize each other, because like someone who plays a certain open world game, they might end up not playing this other open world game, because every game is a fucking open world game. Anyway, hopefully this lets you guys know how I feel about this whole situation. That is going to be it for this video. And that is going to be it for today. Tomorrow we'll be back with some more Dragon's Dogma stuff. If you guys enjoyed today's video, hit that like button if you think that you have a friend or something in the industry or something of that nature that you would like them to watch. Link them to it. If you're new here, subscribe so that you're always notified when there's a new video, new stuff. Usually I do a lot more gameplay than these types of vlog-like, ranty type things. It's just today I just needed to get this off my chest. Anyway, guys, hope you guys will have a good weekend. I'll be back tomorrow with more Dragon's Dogma. See you guys then. Thank you for watching. See you guys on the next one.